During these next slides I'm going to show you the process involved in making this tool cupboard. This is the photo of the rod board that you'll need to draw in order to set out all the joints necessary to make this tool cupboard. This is the cutting list. You'll need to fill this out and it will show all the sizes of all the timber necessary to make the finished piece. First you'll need to cut your timber to length on the radial arm saw. The dimension saw will then be used to saw your timber to width and thickness. This is the surface planer. You'll use this machine to plane face, side and edge flat and free from twist. The thicknesser will then be used to bring your timber to width and thickness. This will be your final finished size, planed all round. Once your timber is planed up, you'll then need to mark dovetails on the ends of the carcass sides and pins on the top. Having marked these out, you then need to cut these as shown. Joints will need to be numbered so you don't get them mixed up. This is the shelf which will be stopped housed into the carcass sides. You'll need to use the router, guide bush and template to cut this housing. Once the carcass is glued together, you'll then need to flush off the dovetails as shown. In this particular picture, a student is using a Lie-Nielsen block plane to finally flush off the dovetails. This shows you the assembled carcass. Note that the back panel is routed into a groove in the carcass sides and top and bottom. The bandsaw will then be used to cut the shaped head and top rail of the door as well. Once the shaped head has been cut on the bandsaw, it will then need to be cleaned up with the spoke shave and glued in position. Note also the supporting framework for the cornice moulding on top. These are comb jointed together. The drawer can then be made. Note that the joints at the front are lap dovetails and through dovetails at the back of the drawer. Again, the plywood bottom is let into a groove routed into the sides, front and back. Once assembled, the drawer can then be fitted into the carcass, making sure it's a tight fit. Once the drawer is completed, the door can then be made. This picture shows the mortises for the top rail of the door. Note the moulding and the groove for the panel as well. This slide shows the tenons for the top rail of the door. Note also the moulding at the bottom where it has been scribed over the moulding on the door style. Here we see the assembled joint being fitted together. Once the joints for the door have been cut, the veneer panel can then be made. In this particular picture, the student is using a hand router to cut out a shape on the front of the door panel. This student is using Zebrano to make a tree shape which will then let into the veneer on the surface of the panel. A hardwood inlay is then routed in around the edge of the door panel as shown. Once the door is assembled, it can then be fitted to the carcass and hung on brass butt hinges. Once the door has been hung, a lock will then be fitted to the back of the door style. Note in this illustration the lock has been taken out so you can see the cutouts necessary. Mouldings are then fitted around the supporting frames top and bottom of the carcass. In this case you can see the mitre on the mouldings. A lathe will then be used to turn the knobs for the drawer and the door. Here you can see the finished product, which will then need to be given coats of sanding sealer and wax polish.